Hello and welcome to the lecture on the personal statement for the what's called the mandatory unit. There are two mandatory units as part of this course. There is Unit 232 and 233. And for Hospedia, and Hospedia only, we've already included some of the questions from these mandatory units in other things that you've done, namely in your bespoke unit. So it's slightly less daunting than it should be, and it consists, I think, of about 12 questions. Okay, but we do actually want these questions written out, no bullet points. So what I've got here is, this is on the screen now, is the actual document. Okay, this is what needs to be completed. But rather than just look at this boring document, I've actually put together a PowerPoint for us to look at as we go through. I say PowerPoint, it's done in Keynote, but it's the same thing. So I said it was two units. It's Unit 232 and 233. I'm going to start off by going through some of the questions from 232, which is understanding the potential of IT. Couple of pointers just for all the questions in general, really. A lot of them are going to start, describe the potential of IT to improve your blank, blank, blank. All right, that can almost sound a little bit daunting. However, if you just read it as how can IT help, that sounds a lot less complicated, and that's exactly the same thing. So where you read things that say describe the potential of IT to improve, just think of it as how can IT help me do something. Okay, and I've bolded up the word describe there because the questions say describe or review, which mean write sentences. You know, we want full and complete answers to these questions and not little bullet points. And some have got word limits on anyway, and so if you do it with bullet points, it will take a lot longer. Okay, so those are just some couple of pointers to look at as we go through these. So let's just go through and have a look at the different questions and have some sort of idea of what's going on with these. So the first one, and 1.1, the numbers refer to specific parts of the unit. They're not necessarily question numbers because they sort of jump around. It's just so that when the portfolios get assessed, we know what part each question is specifically referring to. So, describe the potential of IT to improve your company's internal communication using email and company intranet. Okay, so the focus of this question is on the bolded phrase there, internal. Okay, and so what are the, how does IT, so looking back at what we wrote before, describe the potential of IT, what we really should be just saying is how can IT help communications, okay? And so how does using email help? Well, obviously email, so different things that we can look at. Obviously email is very quick, okay? It's very reliable. If you put something in the post, or as our little man's doing it there, use a catapult to send it. Although almost likely it will get there, doing it by email is a lot quicker, a lot more reliable. You can have things like read receipts so that you can verify that somebody's received it, which you could do with post, but obviously that would cost you a lot more. And you can just make things look a lot more professional with email. You've got the spell check and grammar checkers, so you can come across more professional. So that's one of the ways that, that's some of the potential things that are there for internal communications by email. Then you've also got the company intranet. So the intranet, how can that improve communications? Well, it really is it is a way of communicating, okay? There can be lots of documents stored, so all of the company's policies and procedures all can be stored on the intranet. You can put things on there so that it doesn't clog up the email system, for example. You might not want to email out every time every little policy changes, but if there's one central repository for where they all live, such as the company intranet, that's great. It also is an intranet, meaning internal rather than on the internet. And so you can put more sensitive documents that you may wish to keep private from your competitors and things like that, specific ways that companies will do things. And the intranet is a good sort of private repository of these things. Okay, so now the next question is the same thing but to do with external communications. Okay, so describe the potential of IT to improve your company's external. So how can IT help with external communications? So two things we'll look at is one, the company website. Well, I mean, it's all about communication, isn't it? A website. It's a way for the company to be able to interact with their clients. Okay. It also is a lot about the corporate image. The company website is really portraying how the company looks, and is doing it in a lot more of a. It's a lot cheaper in some ways than, you know, if you had to send a brochure out to everybody that wanted some information about the company. Then, you know, it's a lot more environmentally friendly way of doing it. And I'm sure you can think of lots of ways in which the company website helps to improve communications. Then we've got things like net meetings. There's a whole variety of benefits to using net meetings. Transport costs are greatly reduced to virtually nil. And also travel time. You know, you don't have to travel to go to a net meeting, which is just a wonderful benefit. So it makes it very convenient. There's a huge convenience factor there. One of the other benefits for it is that you can increase your audience size for virtually no cost. So if you want to talk to 10 people, you hire a boardroom. You want to talk to 1,000 people, you have to hire in a whole auditorium. Whereas if you do it via net meeting, you know, the cost, there may be a slight additional cost in the scaling of the product, but nowhere near the amount of costs of the others. So, and I'm sure, and what I want is, when I'm explaining the questions and things like that, is the idea is to give you ideas and also for you to have your own ideas as well to the answer to these. So then we've got the idea of describe the potential of IT to improve the company processes using templates and fault logging systems. I put the blue screen of death on there, the BSOD, as it sometimes gets referred to. So templates, how can that improve the process of a company using templates? Well, you know, a template, if it's designed properly, can give you a very professional look. And templates can either be on the computer or they can already be printed out. You know, so letterheads, they're all done by a template. So that this is given a standard look. Also, if you get all your letterheads, say, printed out, you're going to save cost on printing. You know, if you have to print the colour logo, for example, using your standard inkjet printer, that's going to cost the companies a lot more than it is to get everything pre-printed. It allows, using a template gives a universal customer service, so everybody sees the same thing. And hopefully the templates have been created in such a way that they are examples of good practice and efficient ways of doing things. And so you find the most efficient way, the best way of doing something, doing a layout, doing a specific task, create a template from that, and then everybody else in the company gets to benefit from those. Fault logging systems. The way to sometimes think about these questions is to think, well, what would it be like if we didn't have a fault logging system? And I mean, it's a process for taking something that's very complex. I mean, a fault logging system covers such a huge variety of things, from your chair breaking to servers crashing. And so you need processes for doing these things. I mean, otherwise, you know, random people would be getting emails trying to, you know, allocate things. It would just, you know, things would go missing, things would go astray. You know, a good fault logging system allows for things to get escalated correctly. People with the greatest experience of knowledge can be tasked on just the hardest problems, where people that have got a more broader general knowledge can look at some of the easier faults. So it just allows really good use of company resources. And I'm sure you can think of, you're all using fault logging systems in your day-to-day work, so I'm sure you can see and think of reasons of why they're useful. So, describe the positive and negative impacts on employees of using a fault logging system or using net meetings and conference calls. or two, and of using net meetings and conference calls. So, what are the sort of positives and negatives of these technologies? Well, obviously, positives would be that they're saving time. Okay, as well as saving time, time is money, as they always say. So that is going to save you money. The fault logging system is going to help you streamline all the work processes. It allows people, so the conference calls, people can become better informed, they can increase output. I mean, some of the things that we've already talked about in regards, both of these things can come into play. We've looked at a lot of the positives already. Negatives are, well, people can get information overload. Okay, I mean, you can only go to so many normal meetings, but if your work system then involves using lots of net meetings, then suddenly you can attend a lot more net meetings, and you can just get information overload. For anything that reduces time, there's often redundancies as a result. If computers can do things more efficiently, and using these systems makes things more efficient, then there's often redundancy and also redeployment. People move from one area where it used to take 5 people to do it, well now it just takes 1 people. So, and then other negatives could be conference net meetings and conference callings where you're not really meeting the people in person, and there's so much to be said for actual personal interaction. Real relationships probably don't get cemented with net meetings. They have both advantages and disadvantages, and that's what we're looking at here. Again, this question is just benefits. So we're looking at the benefits of social networks and Wi-Fi. It's a long old question on social and personal communication and interaction. So this is one of those questions where there's so many things that you can write. So the benefits of social networks and Wi-Fi. Well, the benefits of social networks is that just huge collaboration between people. It's worldwide. You can talk to people and collaborate with them from any country. There's no cost. I mean, and these two technologies often have been going together. You can now, Wi-Fi is becoming ever increasing access to it. And some cities have got complete blanket coverage of Wi-Fi these days, so you're never offline. So this allows like whole mobile devices and applications. They can begin to sort of rely that connectivity is going to be there. From the social networks, people are now getting their news. They're getting reviews, opinions of things. If you want to find a good plumber in your area, more and more people are turning to a social network to ask their friends, who they can ask on a much greater scale to recommend people. Far better than looking up something randomly. And there are review sites where people put in their reviews and recommend things. And so you hopefully all these technologies and processes and social networks are allowing people to get to find the people that excel in their areas and weed out those that aren't very good. And obviously other benefits, the whole social networks and the prevalence of Wi-Fi is leading to new markets being established. There are Facebook apps. There are obviously apps being developed for mobile applications that rely on Wi-Fi and things like that. So it's massive, this area. It's absolutely massive. You shouldn't have any problem. Remember, it's a describe though. So, not bullet points, just describe the things out there. And this is a similar area, but describe how IT can improve access to training materials, government services, and products and services in general. So, I mean, for the first one, for training materials, I mean, you just got to look at the World Wide Web, haven't you? It's just full of information. There are also things like virtual learning environments that we use, so people can log on and upload their work. But IT is providing so many different things. You're getting media-rich content which this may be classified as. You can simulate things for education and training materials. People with learning disabilities can get, captions and what's the word I'm looking for? Like subtitles for things that they couldn't, and learn in ways that they couldn't do. I mean, you can learn anything just on YouTube. I bet if you don't know how to cut your toenails, I bet there's a video on YouTube showing how to cut your toenails. So how have government services been improved by IT? Well, you can look up birth and death records and find out a lot of that. A lot of that's been moved online. There's a whole load of, any council website will have a load of information that you can use or put a load of information out there for you. You can find out what day your bins are collected on, all sorts of things about parking. I mean, where I live, they've just introduced a parking permit, which I wasn't particularly pleased about. But I go online, I pay it online, and I don't even get sent a permit to put in my window. My registration plate apparently just gets detected that I've now got parking permit. Has made it easier to park on my street, though, I will admit that. And products and services, well, I mean, God, how has the World Wide Web improved access to these? I mean, has anybody ever bought anything online? I mean, you asked that 10 years ago, and very few had. But I mean, you can buy stuff now anywhere in the world. So that's for physical products. But then there are things like music. Music playing on your iPods, and download and streaming services. You can get films on demand. You've got the whole iPlayer, how that's catching up with things on telly. So I mean, these are easy to write and describe things for these sort of stuff. But of course, so 2.4 is identify possible drawbacks of new technologies on individuals and society. So I'm sure we can think of things. So some potential ideas that you could write around things here. So technology makes life more complicated. That's certainly a true fact. High prevalence of technology when and this is new technologies. So I mean, it's going to be lots of labour-saving devices and things like that. But what are some of the downsides? Well, some of the downsides is that new diseases and disorders. The prevalence of obesities. People having some sort personality disorders where they're not interacting with people. I think those would probably be on the rise. You get obviously new problems that never existed in the past, like computer viruses, bugs and trojans and all that thing. So work being lost and destroyed and things like that. It's very hard these days to protect your. If you produce something that is digital, it's very hard to protect it. Computer programs can be copied. Music and films can easily be copied and downloaded. What other things? Lack of face-to-face communications because of other things going on there. And redundancies, people losing their jobs because machines can do the work for them. So technology has its drawbacks as well as its advances. So that's the end of that section. The next section is about the same length. And the other unit that we're sort of bundling together in here is called Developing Personal and Team Effectiveness Using IT. And this is Unit 233. This unit does have some slightly, I would say, obscure questions. And basically it's because when they designed the course, they introduced an element called PETALS, which is Personal and Learning Thinking Skills. Something like that. And they just want you to be able to analyse, as part of the course, they want you to be able to analyse your own work and other people's work. Okay, so that's sort of personal learning and thinking. So let's have a look at the sort of questions that are coming up. So this unit is all about describing how IT tools can be used to effectively manage your time. So we have looked at it already, email and calendars, but now we're concentrating on time. Now, obviously there's the quick and easy answer about email is quick. So that's obviously one way it can benefit your time. It's much faster to send an email than to write a letter, to print it out, to put it in an envelope and wait the 2 days for it to arrive. But there's sort of a better answer, I think, that's about managing your time effectively, and that's like, you know, although emails come in, you know, constantly virtually these days, we can actually choose when we look at them. So one really good practice that I've taken to do is to not actually look at emails for the first hour of the morning, because what you find when you look at emails is that you get sucked into them. That, you know, you have to respond to them, you have to do things. Whereas if perhaps you take the first hour of your day and you think to yourself, what tasks have I got to do? What's a really important thing? And then you spend that first hour doing that. You know, nobody's really going to suffer if you don't look at your emails for the first hour, but you can get something done, and then you can look at the emails and get sucked into all the different duties and jobs you've got to do. But that might be a way you can use it to effectively manage your time. Whereas a calendar, I mean, is for managing time. But you can then share your calendars with other people so that other people can see them, so that things can be scheduled correctly. You know, you're not going to waste emails going backwards and forwards. Are you free at 2? No, I'm free at 4. Oh, I can't do 4. But you know, if I can see somebody's calendar, then that's going to help there. You know, and the other great thing that calendars do is remind you of things. You know, with visual alerts, and mine even sends me emails. So if I'm not even looking at my calendar program, an email pops in. So to remind you to get to things. So, and you know, as long as you give yourself plenty of notice when you set the reminder, then you should be fine. So I think that's a good few things there. I think this might be the longest question. So identify 2 IT tools or resources that can support your learning and development, and describe how they support personal performance improvement. So, wow, what a long question. So identify 2, so we're looking at 2 resources. So it's 2 IT resources, okay, that can be used to help personal improvement. Okay, so personal improvement, well, you know, you're doing this course, which is personal improvement. So let me talk for me personally. When I'm wanting to learn something new, I like video. Like, you know, we're creating a video here, and the reason I create these videos is because I find them a good way of learning. Now, often it'll be learning something, say, it's a technical way of using an application, for example, and so the watching the video gives you examples and shows you how to do it. So that would be one IT tool and resource. For me personally, I would use video resources. But then I might not get it 100% from that video resource, so then I'd go onto a forum, or I'd find a blog posting about, you know, I'd be searching, so I'd search the internet, so there's obviously another IT resource that can help personal improvement. And then if I don't still get it, then I might, I don't know, I might chat with a friend that I know knows how to do it. And so I could maybe either send them an email, or I could use some interactive messenger program. Okay. Well, finally, obviously there's websites that I can use. So there's an examples of IT resources that I use that support my personal performance improvement, because I'm going to be using them to find things to make me be able to do things in a better manner. I had to put that photo in just from my childhood. Describe how email and calendars can be used to improve team activities. So we before we had email and calendars for time. Now we're looking at team. Okay, so with team, you've got things such as email distribution lists. Okay, so you've got to send everybody in your team the same email. Then using a distribution list is a good one. Obviously, you can put attachments on emails to send around to the team. You also get an audit trail that comes from using email, which can be important when you're using team activities. If you've delegated something to somebody and that they don't do it, you know, and you're in trouble, then you know you can show the email trail that's come as a result of it. Obviously, you can CC in colleagues to important things so that you know that they're kept in the loop and things like that. And you also get shared folders where you know other people could see emails on some systems that are shared. Okay, so that's a whole bunch of different things for emails. On calendars, you can invite a group or a team of people to a meeting. We talked in the last one about sharing calendars, which is obviously important, especially for team activities. I mean, some of these answers may duplicate slightly between questions. That's fine. You've got scheduling, tracking of things. There's agendas for meetings and things, team activities that are coming up. That can also all be set out in the calendars portion of application profiles. So there's a whole range of team activities here. So just concentrate on the team aspect of that. So we've got obstacles here. So identify at least 2 ways that IT can be used to overcome obstacles to effective teamwork when working with colleagues. So this question does take a little bit of decoding here. So what the question's really saying is, how can IT help make effective teamwork? Okay, and how can it overcome the obstacles of that? So the first question is, what are the obstacles in teamwork? Okay, well, teamwork is all about communicating with each other. Okay, you've got to communicate. Okay, and IT is very good at helping people with communication. Okay, so a lack of communication is an obstacle, and IT can easily be used to overcome that for a myriad of reasons that we've already discussed, to do with emails and calendars and websites and just a million things that you can overcome the obstacle of communicating. What other obstacles are there in the group? Well, groups need to support each other and support the individuals, and so IT can be used to do that. You want to have, in order for good teamwork, then you need to have everybody involved. And so, by sending out emails with, maybe using a distribution list, then you get that involvement. You want IT to be inclusive. Another effect that you could have is, somebody in in real life, they might be a bit shy and timid. All right, and so if they're in a meeting, they might not have the courage to speak, and if they do, it might come across in a very poor manner that doesn't get listened to. Okay, so IT, but if that person sends if they go away and write an email to all their colleagues, then they can put their point across in a very clear, concise manner. And IT can have quite a democratizing effect where everybody's voice can be heard at the same level and not just the loudest voice. Okay, so think about, with this question, think about what the obstacles to teamwork are, and then think how IT can help overcome those obstacles. Okay, so we also need, and I think the last 3 questions are all about reviewing IT. Okay, so the question states, review how you used IT in support of at least 2 team activities. Well, the great news is that none of you work for yourself as a single sole trader. You're all working for a large company, and so everything you're doing is a team activity. All right? So now the question seems a lot simpler, because it's just review how you've used some IT at work. That's really what that's saying. Okay? And so it says review, so we need you to write how it went using it. So review, you could say how you're using Fault Logger, because that's a team activity. You're putting it in, somebody on the other, some other part of the team is looking at it and figuring out how to fix it. Okay, so anything, how is email? Review your use of email. Do you write good emails, or do you write tiny, short emails that you just got to review it? But the team activities can just be anything at work. So just pick 2 IT things that you do at work, and just review your use of them. Review if you feel that they're effective or not. When you use Fault Logger, for example, does stuff get done as a result of it? If you're using email or your calendar system or any of the IT things we've talked about, you know, is it a satisfactory process? Are you getting what you're expecting to? So this is now provide 2 examples of giving feedback. So there's some nice feedback going on in the picture there to other people on their use of IT. All right. So what this states is, okay. So 2 examples. All right. So it's easy. It's any time you've been helped. Okay. So the examples of giving feedback to others. So anytime somebody's shown you something on the computer, all right, and so it's like describing that situation where somebody has shown you something on the computer, okay, because you will have fed back to them, okay. So they will have gone, oh, this is how you do it. And so you'd have given them some feedback. Oh, I don't quite understand. Can you show me that again? And so they might have shown it you in a different way or repeated it. So you're giving feedback to others on their use of IT. All right? And then conversely, anytime you have helped somebody else. Okay? So if somebody doesn't know how to do something, okay, and you've shown them how to do something on the computer, you know, I don't know how to connect the printer. Oh, let me show you. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, and then they will either have got it or not got it, and so you'll be giving feedback to them on their use of IT. Okay, if you're helping somebody, you're giving them feedback on their IT. If somebody's helping you, as part of that, you'll be giving them feedback on their IT. Okay, and the last one, okay, is review. Okay, so write about feedback from others on your own use of IT. Provide 2 examples. So the easy one is when I've given you feedback. Okay, so there's plenty of times when if you've done everything really well, then you might have a piece of short feedback, which you may think that's good or not good. But generally, if something's been done very well, then I'll just say, well done, that's great, let's keep cracking. Now, if you haven't done something correctly, then you'll have had longer feedback, asking you to redo different parts. So, so that's an easy one, is feedback that I've given or others assessors have given you. So you've submitted some work, you've had some feedback saying, oh look, this bit's wrong, can you please do it? And then you've made the adjustments and resubmitted the work. So that's an easy one for that. And then you just need to think of something else where they're not necessarily, it doesn't have to be specifically about learning and training. So you may have created a spreadsheet for somebody else, for your boss or something like that, and then you've had some feedback as a result of it. Okay? So it's feedback you've had from other people. Okay? And that's the end of that section. So I've just opened up the personal action plan because this is the one other small thing that you have to do. So a personal action plan is just a way of, it's just like writing down your goals. Now these goals can be knowledge you want to gain, okay, skills that you want to build, or even more esoteric things like attitudes to develop. Okay, so it can be any sort of goal. Okay, so I'll complete one here as an example. So let's say I want to learn how to create layer masks in Photoshop. Okay, how will I know I did it? So how do you actually know when you've created how do you know when you know you can do it? I think that makes sense. So anyway, I would know because I would be able to apply a layer mask to a selection. Okay, that's how I know I will be able to do it. So how am I going to do it? Well, I'm going to practice creating. Whoops, I'm going to spell it right as well. Practice creating layer masks. So dear, this is showing my typing off. very, very badly. Practice creating layer masks. I'm going to have to do some... I'll have to do some research and some reading on forums, probably. So how can IT, because we need to relate it back to IT, how can IT help me achieve this goal? Well, I can use... I could use video tutorials to... good God. I can use video tutorials to be able to do it. Forums. What else could I use? And maybe some ebooks on the subject. Okay? And I'm going to give myself 1 month to, in fact, no, that's probably, I would say 2 weeks. Okay, so that's just an example of one that I poorly spelt throughout. But you can see it's not hard. Just think of 4 things that you want to improve. They don't have to be work related, they can be personal things as well. So just give yourself 4 goals, write what the goal is, how will you know when you've done it, will you probably be able to achieve the goal, how are you going to develop and build those skills, what different ways you're going to do it, how can IT help, we have to relate it back to IT, and then a target date for completion. It's best if you specify, don't specify, give yourself like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or 2 days or something like that. So there you go. I can't believe how badly my typing was. It's just, it was the pressure of being viewed. If anybody has any questions about anything that I've covered today, please contact either myself or your assessor, and I look forward to seeing your work shortly. Thank you very much.